Hello everyone and welcome. Yes, my name is Aerofire and welcome to another episode of Look Out and Shout. Because it's the first review of 2024, we're going to review a Chug figure this time. Feels weird doing this with a Hasbro box. This is Legacy United Thundertron. Now, I don't do Chug reviews too often on this channel. Probably something I really should change. I do a lot of third-party reviews. It's predominantly my collection, certainly Masterpiece. But I do go in for Chug figures as well, particularly when they're good or catch my eye. Now, I'll be the first to tell you, I'm not the biggest Transformers Prime fan you'll find. And I know next to nothing about this figure, as I understand it. This was going to be a character introduced in the third or fourth season, can't quite remember which. But it's a character that never came to pass. So I guess you'd say this is one of these kind of concept figures that what could have been and how they would have looked. And the box itself is nice. It is blue. It has a picture of his alt mode on there. And on the back, you have him in his much more pirate-like form, which is quite a theme with this figure. And his, I want to say, tiger, white tiger kind of look. Doesn't quite scream lion, doesn't quite scream panther, so I'll go with tiger, but hey, it's up for debate, isn't it? Can't do much else with the box. It's got a hole in the top of it, it's got instructions, and it has some somewhat basic presenting and wrapping to it. I do think the Chug boxes look good, but again, I don't keep them. Let's have a look at the figure itself, shall we? And here he is in his robot mode, and that is a lovely, lovely image of a character that yeah, I have no affiliation with. Don't really know what he is other than a space cat pirate. But damn, he looks good. He really pops with a combination of colours. The white, that lovely dark blue, but the accents of the copper. It just looks really, really cool. The beard on the head sculpt is brilliant. We'll get into that in a second. It's just a really well proportioned figure. I do wish, for how good it looks, that it was leader class. And I think I'm going to be saying that a lot in this review. It just really captures the personality really well. Even though I don't know the backstory of this character, I feel like I know what it's trying to represent. It's just really cool to see in hand. The additional features with it, which I'll go into in a second, are quite nice as well. Again, playing to the character of the figure. It's that space pirate vibe. It's a predator, hunter, gatherer kind of feel. It's not often that a Chug figure gets my attention so much. So let's get in for a closer look. So if I bring him in close to the camera, you might see that brilliant face sculpt he's got going on. Chiseled look on the eyes. Old warrior style. The white really pops really well. Nice insignia on the back there. Articulation is pretty good. We get friction all over the place, of course. The shoulder pads don't move because they'll contain the claws for alt mode, but the shoulder rotation is fine enough. There is a bicep swivel, but it's at the elbow rather than say bicep, but it does the same thing. There is a waist rotation, but you kind of have to lift up the back of the figure to get that kind of clearance to do so. But there is one. Possibly with the hip skirts, posability can be a little bit limited. Friction out of the side, again, shin pads getting in the way a little bit, but they can be adjusted out. Good knee bend. Ankle rotation is good. You can still get them into some pretty good poses. I do wish this tail would fold away a bit more. It's a shame it doesn't collapse back on itself completely, because it kind of just hangs low, which is fine. It's not going to get in the way, but just for the sake of completion, I would like it if it just folded away into the body of the figure somewhat. Maybe again, if this was a leader class figure, would that work better? Now, in terms of weapon, he comes with his sword, or sword, which he holds like so. But don't worry, we're not done there, because if you take off his right foot, giving him a peg leg feel, the talons of the claw will then fold back on themselves. You then place the sword in the back of the foot, and he now has a sword, peg leg, and cutlass, really leaning into the pirate feel. It's a nice enough feature. The only thing I'd say is in this mode, whilst it uses all the parts of the peg leg is fun, it makes the sword maybe look a little bit smaller because the hilt of the sword is going up and eclipsing some of it. Just a little minor nitpick that I've noticed, but it's still a cool feature nevertheless. And for weapon storage, he can put it on his back just like he would if he was in alt mode as well. Okay, on to some comparisons. Here he is alongside Legacy Evolution, I believe, Armada Universe Starscream, See how they look together. We have War for Cybertron Kingdom Artfire. Studio Series 86 Scourge to see how the bearded bros rock it together. And even more bearded action. Here he is alongside Generations Alpha Trial. And with him being a pirate, he'll be hunting things at sea. And this is the only nautical creature I've got. This is TFC's Toys version of a G1 Rippersnapper. Not exactly G1, stylized of course, but that's how they look together. As if he was hunting him down for his prey. Okay, let's get Captain Birdseye transformed up, shall we? And here he is in his alt mode. And that is a very interesting, colourful looking tiger. I'm going to go with tiger. I feel that's the right animal for him. I think it looks really good. The transformation is fine. It's fair. The only trouble I had a slight issue with was putting the robot fists under the neck. It took a little bit of jiggering to get them into place and then to latch on. But other than that, it's like any kind of beast form or transformer. It lies down from a robot mode upwards to a four-legged creature on all fours, really. Transformation is fine. The colour is lovely. The blue is so nice. It may come across a little bit dark on camera, but in the light, it has such a nice pop to it. It's almost a royal blue, but just that shade lighter. The copper breaks it up so nice. I love the kind of accents of it around the legs and the shoulders and on the claws. It holds the pose fine. There's no tolerance issues. You could argue that there's limited posability for this mode, but then again, animals, you can't do an awful lot of posing with them other than moving some paws back and forward. But I like how it looks. I love the head sculpt and the mane around the side of the face and how that fans out from the chest of the robot mode. It's just a really well done figure. It looks good in robot mode and it transforms into a good beast mode as well. Can't really say enough good things about it. For what it does, a simple job, it just does it really well. Let's get in for a closer look. So you can see the kind of detailing there on the face, with even the mouth opening up. You don't get an awful lot of jaw rotation, but you get something there. You get to see his teeth baring. Again, I love the kind of gold accents on the nose. The side of the paws will, side of the arms I should say, clip into his arms of robot mode to give a bit more rigidness for the front. And it's a nice sort of pneumatic leg around the back. The only thing I think is a little bit sort of unsightly is I wish for the weapon storage, which goes here, which just pegs in top down like that, there is this gap that whilst it needs to be there for housing in the robot mode, it would be nice if the sword kind of sat in there as well, and it doesn't, or at least not by design. It kind of slots in, but it would be good if that was a fixed part of the transformation. The hip skirts of the robot mode kind of act as fans tails here. And yeah, it's good. I would say, yeah, there isn't kind of much in terms of head rotation. There is kind of paw rotation, arm rotation. But it looks good nevertheless. It's those striking colours that really bring the animal to life. And just so you see what I'm talking about, that's the weapon storage of the figure. I mean, it's fine, it's flat, it pegs in. I just would have liked it if it sat into that groove in the middle a bit more by design. It can look a little bit off centre, but it's weapon storage nevertheless. Okay, now on to some comparisons. Keeping it at least beast related and different scale ranges of course, but here he is alongside Transart's version of a Transmetal Rat Trap. So this is in the beast mode and in the masterpiece scale, but you can see the size we're dealing with. Here he is alongside Fans Toys Parkour, their version of a cliff jumper. This is perhaps a better scale range. This is Takara Hot Rodimus for a typical masterpiece carbot scale. Again, this isn't masterpiece, but it gives you a sort of a uniform set size that we are dealing with here. I don't have too many legacy figures to compare with, certainly not in beast mode. Well, aside from this one, of course, here he is alongside, this is Legacy version of a Transmetal 2 Megatron. They're both beasts, but they're not exactly Prime Universe, but that's what we're dealing with in terms of beast and size. So what are my final views on Thundertron? Again, not being the biggest chug collector in the world. I have some. I have actually got a few, but I'm not chug core, if you see what I mean. My collection is not heavily chug enthused, but that's the point. I'm not the biggest Transformers Prime fan. I know nothing about this figure, and I'm not the biggest chug collector, and Hasbro sold me this figure. That tells you what you need to know. If you can get someone like me who's not your target audience to buy this figure, then you've done a good job. You've done something right. There's so much about this figure that I like. But I'll start on the negatives, but there's so few, I feel remiss not to mention them. I do think this suffers from being a Voyager class and would benefit from being a leader class, just being that bit bigger, a bit more engineering offered to it. A minor nitpick. I do think as well for the robot mode, we have got to get past fixed hands, non-movable hands. I think we've got to get to a point now, and we do see it sometimes, but we've got to get to a point where we have opening and closing hands, not necessarily individually moving fingers, but open and closed fist. I just feel that's a step of engineering we should be at by now, and certainly one that he would benefit from. And that's it. That's all I can say that's bad about this figure. Okay, I'm not crazy about the weapon storage of the sword. I do think with this gap that's through the middle of the back, that the sword could do better if it was placed a bit more centrally and almost become a fixed part of the tail. I mean, it kind of sits. Maybe that's even better. But it's got its groove to plug into on the top of his back. I would feel just a little better if it was somewhere it could sit in the middle. Just look a bit more aesthetically pleasing. Maybe. But the colours are lovely. The blue really got my attention. That kind of coppery highlights as well. It's a colour combination that really works. The white highlights on the robot mode, I know most of this figure is white anyway, but the head with the beard around the face gives it that chiselled old pirate look. I love the beard. That looks fantastic. The detachable foot to be the hilt of the sword and a peg leg. I like the peg leg, but I thought that was a bit almost silly. But that's warmed on me as a gimmick, so I do like that. The transformation is fair and fun. Again, going from 2 legs into 4, it more or less falls down. I just really like it. It's one of these figures that it does so much right, it does so little wrong. And yeah, it's just, this is good Hasbro fun. Not every one of their figures, I think, does this. I think some of their figures just kind of do the basics so they can release a character. Okay, this time we're going to do a Target Master, so it has a gun that can also turn into a robot. There you go, Target Master done, move on to the next one. This feels like it's got a little bit more care to me, and maybe signalises what a big deal this character would have been. I do think this is quite funny in that if I'd have got a figure like this, I would have turned around and gone, this doesn't fit with anything else in my collection, and this doesn't. So where would I keep it on my shelf? That doesn't even enter my mind because I like this figure so much. Looks good in both modes. The transformation's fun. It's a Voyager class, so it doesn't cost a stupid amount of money. Okay, I don't have an emotional connection to the character, but I like it so much, nevertheless. I think it looks so cool. It's surprisingly photogenic as well. There's just things about it I really like. And I think if I'd have got this at the tail end of 23, I know it came out in the tail end of 23, I would have said this would have been my pickup for 2023, one of my top pickups, one of my top 5. Instead, I got this earlier in 24, and yeah, it feels like a contender because, again, it's surprised me how good it is. And again, I'm not the biggest Chug collector. It's a recommendation from me. If you haven't got it, I think it does speak volumes. If for someone like me who's not a Chug collector and has very little affinity with Transformers Prime and no affinity with this character, really before this I didn't really know it existed, and I've still got it and I'm very happy with it, that tells you what you need to know. Based on this, I give this 4.5 Rodimus Star Badges. It's just that it's fun. Okay, posability in Beast Mode is a bit limited, but it's got a prowling sense. So you can only pose it in so many poses anyway. It has a good sense of presence in bot mode. It's just a fun one to have in your collection. It looks so good. The colours are so striking. The build's good. There's no tolerance issues. I just wish it was that class bigger. I wish it was leader class just to have even more presence. Now, I did see a comment online that it was listed somewhere that it would be coming out in a leader class. I wonder if that was just simply an error. I can't see why they would release it as a Voyager class, then re-release it upscaled. I wonder if that's just a listing error. If that is the case, and it does come out in leader class, I might be a bit annoyed. I might be a bit annoyed that I got it already, and then I'd have to sell it on just because I want it in a slightly bigger scale. But I'd be tempted to look at it because I think it's one thing that somewhat holds the figure back. But I really do like it. Again, for a figure I have no affiliation with, no love for, no emotional connection, it's still really good and has been already one of my pickups of the year. And there we go. That is my review of Legacy United Prime Universe Thundertron from Hasbro. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and hit that subscribe button because I will see you on the next one.